Hello, everyone. My name is Hayley McCorkle, and I would like to welcome you to IFFGD's Research Grant Winner Series titled Where Are They Now? This program was designed not only to acknowledge this year as being IFFGD's 30th anniversary, but to also give us a chance to reconnect with some of our past gastroparesis grant winners. Today, we have the pleasure of speaking with Dr. Cheng, who is our 2014 Idiopathic Gastroparesis Grant winner. Thank you so much for joining us today, Dr. Cheng.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so can you please just tell us a little bit about yourself, maybe where you're currently located, and also your current research focus?
So I'm a professor based in Auckland, New Zealand. I'm part of the University of Auckland, and my department's called the Auckland Bioengineering Institute. So I'm a bioengineer, I'm not a clinician, and one of my research aims is to try and apply engineering techniques to try and help understand further what happens in your gut, and in particular what happens in your gut in certain disease cases such as gastroparesis.
Yes, yes. Thank you so much for that background. And so cool just to be speaking with someone who is a bioengineer and not really a clinician. So this is going to be a great interview, and we can't wait to really learn more about your journey through research. So as we're speaking about the IFFGD grant that you received in 2014, how do you feel that winning the idiopathic gastroparesis grant may have helped further your research career?
So this grant was quite critical. We received it quite early, relatively early on in our endeavor to help improve gastroparesis and what's going on. And one of the key aims of the grant was to link with Professor Tom Abel, who was based and is based at Louisville. And the aim of this study was to try and improve our electrical recordings that we make from people's stomachs. And we were quite successful. We linked with Tom Abel, Professor Abel, and were able to map from a number of his gastroparesis patients that he was implanting gastric stimulators into.
Awesome. That sounds so exciting just to kind of really learn more about that. So, with the research study that you're talking about, or any other ones that you may have been involved in detail with gastroparesis, do you have any publications that may have been released after these research studies or anything to that nature?
Yes, so we have a couple of quite key research papers that we've published. Two of them were published in Gastroenterology, which is a major journal in our field. And what we presented was how the electrical activity in your gut is quite different between a normal subject and those with gastroparesis or idiopathic gastroparesis. And in particular, we found that the electrical patterns were very disordered, very similar to a cardiac electrical disorder. And also the other key finding was the electrical disorders occurred at a frequency quite similar to a normal patient. So this means that it's quite hard to diagnose these sort of disorders by taking measurements from the body surface, which is currently done quite commonly.
Yes, yes. Thank you so much for bringing that part of that in there too, and just realizing and helping us understand how this all really intertwines in patient care and finding the best treatment. Because really, you're just trying to understand what is the difference between a normal gut and a person with gastroparesis. So that's very cool detail. And we kind of want to dig a little bit deeper into this topic because it's very interesting. And so it sounds like you're still involved in research that's definitely related to gastroparesis, but can you tell us just a little bit more in detail about some of the current research studies that you are working on related to gastroparesis, especially idiopathic gastroparesis?
Sure. So we study, as I said, we apply a lot of different engineering techniques, and a lot of those are to try and help understand both normal, healthy gut function and also abnormal gut function. So we apply mathematical techniques, and we use mathematics to help analyze what's going on. And one example project we do is we analyze histology images. So these are detailed microscopic images of gut tissue and try and compare between normal and abnormal tissue. We're also applying new techniques to stimulate the gut or pace the gut to try and correct the rhythm of the gut back to a normal state. We also have quite an interesting project where we're trying to map electrically the stomach activity endoscopically, because up till now, most of the techniques we've used have been quite invasive. So by applying a mapping device endoscopically, we're able to apply this to a lot more patients and we don't require invasive measurements.
Yes, that is so exciting and so new. I've yet to hear about some of these techniques, except for whenever I read a little bit about your research studies that you are doing. And I feel like these are all like cool advances that's being made in the research field for us to really get down to the bottom line of what's causing gastroparesis so that we can soon in the future be able to help patients live a better quality of life, because as we know, gastroparesis can be very debilitating and can be life altering, almost life threatening sometimes. So, just hearing some of these research studies that you're working on to really get to the bottom line of it, it's so cool and so interesting. So, what are some things that you may hope to really understand? Like, what are some key points that you really hope to understand while conducting these research studies to really get to the bottom line and better understand how gastroparesis relates to adults in the population?
So the key thing we're doing is targeting the electrical activity, and we want to identify key signatures of gastroparesis and be able to detect these reliably and detect them ideally without relatively non-invasively. And when we can detect these quite reliably, we're able to give a very definitive diagnosis. And then the more distant aim would be to try and correct these key signatures or remove them in some way.
Yes, it's so exciting and can't wait to hear more from you on this topic. So, we all know that really all research is really important for us to better understand GI conditions as a whole. But what would you consider maybe being your most successful research study and why?
The best research study we've done is probably, or the most successful research study we've done is probably the work that I mentioned with Professor Abel, because we were dealing directly with the gastroparesis patients. And so I think it was real important to try and work with the patients and identify what sort of disorders they were having. And that's a real key thing for an engineer to not to directly involve with clinical translation rather than just tinker away at your own lab.
Yes, that's what I was just about to say. I mean, so cool for you to be able to actually be hands-on with the patient community and the patient itself to really see how these things that you're working on in your lab without the patient involvement kind of translates. I think that that's probably the cool part with that research study. So thank you so much for sharing that. Um, and what other acknowledgments have you received outside of winning the IFFGD grant in 2014?
So our group, we're lucky to be awarded the Vice Chancellor's Research Medal, and that's provided by our university in recognition for our research. And a number of my group have also, fellows in my group have received quite prestigious fellowships. And so they've set off on quite successful careers and been a little bit more independent from me now. So that's been very pleasing to see.
Yes, it's always nice to get recognized and to know that your work really means something and it's making a difference. The recognition probably isn't the best or the most thing that you're looking for. You're really probably looking, how can I best help the patient population? And the recognition just comes secondary to that. So
Mhm.
kudos to you for getting that recognition and honestly just keeping the motivation to continue the research that you are doing, because it definitely does make a difference. And we just want to say thank you for all of the involvement that you have in research and how passionate you are. And, speaking of passion, what do you specifically enjoy about being a researcher and why?
There's a couple of key things that I really enjoy. I enjoy working with people, and there's two broad types of people that I interact with, and those are students. So it's really good to work with PhD and master students and watch them, help them to develop, watch them grow, and to help them to flourish. And the other key thing that I really enjoy working with is patients, interacting with them and trying to give them some hope and some help to with their disorder that they have. The other key thing that, as a scientist, is trying to discover new things, and so figuring out how biology works and physiology works is a really key motivation for me.
Yes. Yes. And not only do you have a touch on those who are coming through and coming up in your lab in the future of research, really, because that's truly what fellows are. They're the future of whatever you are leaving behind, but also just the enjoyment of being able to definitely have an impact on the quality of life and the care for a patient and advancing the field so that hopefully one day we have more treatment options and management options for patients living with gastroparesis. So you definitely have a great passion behind this, and it shows in all of the research that you are conducting and that you have done in the past. So, and like I said before, we are always so excited to hear about everything that comes from you and any new publications that you do have. But as we're discussing, and as we kind of wrap things up here, we know that there are some gap needs still in the area of research for patients living with gastroparesis. Not many treatment options, not a cure yet. So, what do you see as being some of the gap needs in research still today? And how do you foresee some of these gap needs being filled in your lab?
So I think the key research, or not the key need that for gastroparesis is a definitive diagnosis. And that would be lead you a long way down the path before you can start targeting certain treatment options. And we're working at different ways of trying to target these sort of diagnosis methods. And I have a very strong mathematical background as well. So, and we do a lot of mathematical modeling work. I think there's a big opportunity for that. And we've recently started a grant with the University of Michigan to try and help improve our models of the stomach and trying to help improve different pacemaker type technologies using mathematical modeling.
Yes, yes. And that is going to be something that I think will definitely help in the future of research and will at least give us a start so that, like you said, we can come down to a definitive diagnosis for patients so that we can start them on the right path of treatment. And like I said before and throughout this program, we are extremely excited to continue to learn more about the research that is coming from your lab, and we're looking forward to any publications that you have. Please keep us updated and please continue to stay motivated because we appreciate all that you do for the patient community and all that you um, are doing in research to help advance the field. So, thank you so much for taking your time to really just share your journey and your insight on this topic today. And also, thank you for everyone who has tuned into IFFGD's Research Award Winner Series titled Where Are They Now? Where Today? We've had the pleasure of speaking with Dr. Cheng, who is our 2014 Idiopathic Gastroparesis Grant winner. Thank you again for joining us today, Dr. Cheng.
Thank you.